Welcome to the DevNet Zone. My name is John, and today I'm going to teach you Python basics with a focus on network engineering. Welcome to the channel. If you're watching this video, you're probably a network engineer that's trying to get into network automation. And in this video, I'm going to teach you the Python basics to automating processes for your network devices. To start off, the most critical part to automating any process with Python with your network devices is using a connection handler. So here we're going to be using Netmiko, which uses SSH to be able to connect to your network devices and be able to send commands to all of your network devices. So Netmiko has two different connection handlers. It has the default one, which is connect handler. It's the standard one that I feel like most people use. But recently, Kirk Byers, well, not recently, but on this day, Kirk Byers created a replica of the connection handler called ConnLogOnly. The reason he did this is because previously, whenever you would automate and try to have some kind of like error handling with the connect handler, you would create something like this try except block to be able to handle different errors regarding to authentication or not being able to connect to the device properly. So instead of having to actually code this into your script, he went ahead and added some logging into the library. So if you scroll down, this is how I use the connection handler. It's literally identical to the connect handler, but we're using connect log only. And these are literally the bare minimum. So you would import these libraries. These are the parameters you need for your device. So you need the host address, which if this resolves properly, it'll actually connect to your device. So this could be an FQDN or an IP address, a username, password, and the device type. This tells the connection handler saying, hey, I'm going to be going into an iOS device, or I'm going to go into an NXOS device, or it could be a completely different vendor. And then these four parameters will get passed to the connection log only, which is the connection handler. And then this is the error handling. It's just going to return a 1 or a 0. And if something happens, it'll just say, hey, login failed. And then you would disconnect. The nice thing about the connection log only is that it creates a log file. So netmiko.log, you would go in here and it would tell you, hey, you had an authentication issue, or hey, we had an issue connecting to the device. So for this video, I'm going to be using the connection log only instead of the connect handler. So looking at my directory, I have 3 different files. So I have my actual script, which I called execution. I have my inventory. So these are 4 devices I have in a CML lab. So I'm staging my inventory in a YAML file that I'm then loading into my Python script. So looking at this, I have 4 devices. And then you're going to see the parameters that are absolutely necessary. So I have my host address. This is just a variable that I'm going to be calling, which is for the host name, the device type, and a role. The 2 that you're not seeing is my passwords, but because I pass, you don't want to stage your passwords in your inventory file in plain text. So whenever I execute my script, it's going to prompt me to enter my password, my username and password at runtime. So here's split screen so we can reference both. Let's look at the Python script. So at the very top, I'm importing my connection log only, which is my connection handler from Netmiko, and a couple other libraries. GetPass is what I'm using to prompt for my password. YAML is what I'm using to read my inventory file. And then sys I'm using as the error handling, that if there's some weird issue, it'll just end the script. I have 3 functions. One function is used to connect to the device, which I call device connect. And I'm using the connection log only, and I'm passing the device parameters, which you'll see in a bit as I scroll down. But here, if there's an issue, which you saw earlier, if net connect is none, so if I have an issue connecting, it's going to return 0. If none, it's going to end the script and tell you, hey, error host connection failed. Or it'll print, hey, host connection successful, and then return the values of that variable. Same thing, if when I go to disconnect my session, I'm going to call this function. It's just saying, hey, netconnect.disconnect. And then it's going to say disconnection is successful in a try block. and an exception if for some reason there's an issue disconnecting. And then a third function, which I'm using to execute the commands that I'm passing to my network devices. And I'll go over these as I make my way down the script. When I call them, I'll come back and reference them. So first, I'm going to read my inventory file, which is my YAML here on the right side. I'm going to call this target. So to give some context, and actually I'll quickly demo this. So the script that I built is essentially an interactive shell that I can target any device in my inventory from this single terminal. And then I'll have an interactive shell to run any command that I want. And then when I exit, when I enter the command exit, it ends the session. So let's quickly run. So I run python execution.py, and I have three options. I can either call a hostname, meaning I can target one device. So I can do R1, R2, switch 1, switch 2. Or I can call the role. So role, there's two devices with router and two devices with switch. If I call role, it'll grab the two devices. Or I can click all, and then my script is going to iterate through every device in my inventory. So for now, I'm going to enter router 1 because I'm going to target one device. My script is not going to prompt me for my username, just Cisco. Now it's going to prompt me for my password. As you can see, my password is not displaying in the terminal, is because getPass allows you to have that obfuscated password. So when you're typing in your password, it's not going to display in plain text. Same thing for your enable password. Okay, so you see host router 1, which we connected to, connection successful. And now this is telling us we're in router 1. Enter a command or enter exit in or quit the session. So this is a router. So let's look at the routing table, show IP route. As you can see, in router 1, it's going to display our routing table. And it's going to prompt me again. Remember, it's an interactive shell. Host router 1 again. So let's just do show version. Right now, we can look at the versioning information for our device, show interface description, etc. Show IP interface brief, and enter exit, and the script ends. I can also do the same thing. So now let's enter a role. My role is going to be switch. And now it should return all the switches, right? So we have two switches, switch 1 and switch 2. Now let's see. The first host is switch 1. Look at our VLANs. Cool, VLAN 10, VLAN 20. Let's look at our interfaces, right? Okay, we're gonna exit, disconnect, and now we connect into a new device. Host switch 2, connection successful. Host switch 2. Same thing, we can look at the VLAN information for this one, look at the version. And we can exit, session's done. And then I can either type router and I'll return my routers, or I can do all. And I'll target all my devices. So now we're on switch 1. Then so router 1. So router 1, if I click exit, now I'm on router 2, switch 1, switch 2. Right, and that's how the script works. It's just an inactive shell that you can run from your terminal against all the devices in your inventory. And this is something you can do if you don't have any like fancy tools. You don't have like something like Netbox that you can have, or like a data center infrastructure manager where you can stage all of your source of truth, all of your, device information. Or you can make a simple YAML file and just add the parameters that you absolutely need. And then you can start targeting devices and then your Python script. All right, so let's get back to the script. So as you can see, that's how I read the file, pass it to devices, and then my target, which is how prompts me for either the hostname, the role, or all devices. Right, so this input is what's going to prompt me. So this is what prompts in the terminal saying, hey, and then asking me what to enter, and it passes it to the input, variable target. Same thing. Everything that prompts me in the script that you saw is in this section right here. Here's the username, enter username. And then you see I'm using input for both, and I'm specifying, hey, that this is going to be a string. Because if I type in like a 1 or a 2, like an integer, I don't want it to show up as an integer. I want it to be a string. And then for the password, as you remember, you saw, so I'm not using input anymore. I'm going to be using getPass. And getPass already has all the code built into it to not display my information in plain text in the terminal. So getPass, I getPass, prompt, and then the prompt that you saw in the shell, which is enter password, enter enable password. Okay, now that we have all of our parameters ready to be able to log into the device, now we're going to iterate through each of the devices. We want to make sure that these prompts are before the loop, because once we start looping through each device, you're going to be prompted every single time. So that's why this is here. So every single device that we're going through, we're not being prompted for credentials again. The only time I can see someone doing that is every device had a different credential. But for the most part, you're gonna have something like that's like LDAP or Active Directory, or some kind of AAA service that's gonna have your admin credentials, and then you'll be able to log with the same admin credentials to all your devices. So next, we're going to loop through our devices. So here that we read, so for device in devices. Now this is a for loop. So this is going to iterate through each item in devices. So, and then these are the parameters that I'm defining for each of the parameters that I need. So remember I said I needed the host address, the device type, so the different things that Netmiko needs to be able to connect to the device. So here's a device type, and then device type. So what I'm doing here, I'm actually going into this device variable, which is being pulled from my inventory, and I'm calling device type. So device type is Cisco _ iOS. Host address is device host over here, this key in my inventory file. Host name, router 1, router 2, and then the role. So these are variables I'm defining in my Python script that I'm pulling from my inventory file. And then here is where I define my device parameters. So do you remember here where it says device _ connect? I'm passing a device variable. And then these 2 stars means I'm passing key arguments. That means when I'm passing a dictionary, is this means I'm passing a dictionary to this function. It's gonna grab the keys, and by keys, I mean device type, host, user, and password, and the value of that parameter. So I'm passing device type to device type, which I grab from my inventory file, host address, username, password, which these are not in my inventory file. These were prompted by the script itself. The port is 22, and then the secret password, which I also was prompted. Okay, so we're going into our first if condition. So this condition is how I determine what type of devices I'm going to be iterating in my automation. So target, as you saw, is set here, the target variable, and I'm going to enter either a host name, a role, or all. So if I go here, so if target equals host name, remember I'm looping through this device. So it's saying if target equals host name, so if I type R1 or R2, or target equals role meaning being set here. If I pick a role, router or switch, or target dot lower. So the reason we do lower is, let's say I type all with a capital A, or essentially I don't want it to be case sensitive. So whatever someone types, regardless of how they type all, if there's caps or not, this lower is going to set the string to be all lowercase. And that helps avoid certain case related issues. So what we're saying here is I'm only going to run everything in this block. See how it's indented? If this, and then it's indented. This is meaning I'm only going to run the things in this section if this condition up here is true. So if target equals hostname, meaning R1, that means I'm only going to run this if hostname is R, if target is R1, or the role, or all, it's going to run everything. Okay, so now that we get the logic, so we're iterating through everything in our inventory here for devices. But then there's a condition saying, hey, we're only going to actually execute against the said device if it meets this condition. So now we're running into our first function that we're calling. So netConnect variable equals device connect. So we're passing this variable with these parameters to this function, device underscore connect. And the reason I did this is because the actual logic of my script, I want it to be very clean. I don't want it to be cluttered, because a lot of times you could just add a try block here. You could do try and then, do your connection handler and then an accept. And then if you want to do one for your command, that's another try block. See, execute commands. So this would be like another try block because you want to do error handling. If something goes wrong with your script, you want to be able to troubleshoot it. You want your script to be able to tell you, hey, this is exactly what went wrong. So as you can see here, I have my three functions. So this is a function to connect, my function to execute the command that I'm passing, and then a function to disconnect. Before we get to let's get to the device connect function. So device connect. So what is actually happening in this section, even though it's just one line, this is what's happening. So we're defining the variable netConnect equals connect, this is the connection handler, and we're passing the device parameters as key arguments to connection handler. And then this is our error handling if netConnect is none. So if there's an issue, the ConnLogOnly is going to return a 0. So if netConnect is none, we're going to end the script, sys.exit, and then we're going to display this in the terminal. Hey, say, hey, error, host name variable, connection failed. And then if it established properly, this is what you saw when I was showing you earlier, print host connection successful. And then we're going to return this netConnect variable. So when you do a return, you're saying, hey, the results of this connection, we're going to send it back. If we scroll down, you see how we did netConnect equals device connect. So the results from this function are going to be returned back to this variable. Okay, so now we're connected. And you saw earlier, connection successful, we get our prompt. So we define our command, so it's just empty string at first. Now we're going to go into a while loop. So a for loop is going to iterate based on a defined list. So I have 4 devices. So if I do all, it's going to only do 4 loops until it gets through all these guys, and then the loop is over. A while loop is like the opposite. So essentially the way it's read, it's while command is not exit. So this is my interactive shell. So as you saw, I was able to type in as many commands as I wanted. And then when I entered exit, then my interactive shell ended. So this is it. So this is saying, hey, we're going to keep prompting you. We're going to keep looping through this. So let's continue reading real quick. So while command does not equal exit, we're going to print, as you saw, this kept coming up, host, and then the host that you're in. And then command, and this is the prompt, we're using input again. So enter command or exit to quit. And then here we have an if condition that if command.lower equals exit, break, meaning break is going to end the loop. So the while loop. So as you can see here, so while command does not equal exit, so I can continue to type in my command. So it goes like this. I enter my command. It goes down. It doesn't meet this condition because it's not exit. It executes the command here. Let's actually look at this function. So this function receives 2 variables. So the netConnect, which is the connection handler received up top. So this connection handler, and then the command that I'm being prompted from this line. So the connection handler and the command that we're sending. So let's look at execute command. So here's a try block. Remember, all 3 of these have try blocks. So if I expand this, look how much stuff is in my screen, right? Versus like all these clean lines right here. See, I don't want all these try blocks cluttering the actual logic of my script, right? I want to hide it behind these functions, and then these functions are also reusable. So let's actually look at it. So we're going to try. The output is essentially the command. So net connect, the connection handler, dot send command, and then the command that was prompted to me. And then if that gets passed, so if you see that gets passed to output, and then it also prints the output. So this is, let's say I type in show version. Show version gets passed to the output variable, and then we're printing it out to the terminal with print output. If there's any issue, we can have this exception that's going to tell us, hey, there's something went wrong sending the command. Let's go back down. And then, yep, so I can continue to type commands. It's going to continue to loop. It's going to like, while I can continue commands, as long as it's not exit, you can continue running commands. And then I type in exit, and then it breaks the while loop, just this block. And now I move down back in indentation. So we move back down to this one, and then it goes disconnect session. So device disconnect, again, passing the connection handler. We go back up, same thing in a try block, net connect dot disconnect, and then we print host disconnection successful. If for some reason we're not able to disconnect, we'll have an exception, and we'll be able to tell the type of error for what happened. And then earlier, we got a message saying that Netmiko actually didn't log it. Let's actually mess something up because I want to show you the logging and why it's important. So this first one should return error regarding a connection. I don't have a device with IP address 105. So we should get an error. So we're going to go to router 1, type in our credentials, and we should see an issue trying to connect. Error, host router 1 connection failed. Let's look at our log. Let's look at this. So we got stuff here. I don't need to look at this anymore. So it's saying on this date, I received an error, unable to reach the provided host and port. So this IP on this port tells you TCP connection to the device failed. It tells you the common causes of why this problem occurred, and then the device settings, right? The device type, IP, port. All right. Now let's actually fix this, and let's do another issue. Same thing, we'll target router 1, but this time I'm going to mess up my password. See what kind of error we get. See, same thing, connection failed. Let's look at our log. Now, let's look at the difference between the two. So now it's saying authentication failure to this device. So common causes, invalid username, password, incorrect SSH key, or you're connecting to the wrong device. So that's kind of like the nice thing to have with the connection only versus the connection handler is that a lot of this is built into the connection log only, but it does the exact same thing as the connection handler. The only difference is that from the connection handler to connection log only, you have to use, you have to manually disconnect from the device. With a connection handler, sometimes you can connect and then it'll just auto disconnect for you. You don't actually have to define it as a disconnect. But this is always a good safety net. You want to disconnect from that device and not have any open connections. So yeah, this is a very quick way to automate just running commands against your devices, even if you're just gathering information from a single place and a very simple inventory file. Like I said, you don't need a super fancy tool like Netbox or Notabot, or you don't need like any other device that's just hosting all this information. A very simple YAML file with just the information that you need, and then a Python script with the right amount of logic to be able to run commands against your devices. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for future videos on Python programming.